We start with Bill Maher, the host of Real Time from HBO. Bill Maher, thank you so much for joining us. I want you to watch Newt Gingrich. Here he is. Let's listen to the great man himself. Oh, we're going to show. I'm sorry. We're going to show. We're going to go right now to. You know what? We're going to go. We're going to go to you on Real Time. Let's listen.
Christine, if you're watching, I created you. You need to come on this show. If you don't come on this show, I'm going to show a clip every week. I'm the only one who has them. I hoarded them. Let me show this clip. This is from Politically Incorrect, I don't know what year, like 1997 or something. You were a witch.
I dabbled into witchcraft. I never joined a coven.
Wait a minute, you were a witch?
Yeah, she was a witch.
You were a witch?
I didn't join a coven. Let's get this straight.
Wait a minute, I love this. You're a witch. You're going Halloween's bit. I was a witch. I mean, wait a minute.
That's exactly why.
How you used to be a witch?
Because I dabbled into witchcraft. I hung around people who were doing these things.
Having fun?
I'm not making this stuff up. I know what they told me they do.
Well, what they do?
I mean, in one of my dates, my first date
Wait, I want to hear about this.
One of my first dates with the witch was on a satanic altar, and I didn't know it. And I mean, there's little blood there and stuff like that.
That was a date? Your first date was a satanic altar?
Yeah, we went to a movie and then like had a little midnight picnic.
Let's have a movie and a sacrifice?
Well, that's the United States, the candidate for the United States Senator from Delaware, the Republican Party. Here's her response to you, Bill, for your thoughts. Let's listen. This is Christine O'Donnell going back at you.
Bill wanted ratings. I gave him ratings. I was in high school. Who didn't have interesting friends in high school? There's no story here.
Bill, she said she was there to boost your ratings.
My turn?
Yes, your turn.
Well, it's funny to me, Chris, because this is the woman who claimed on another one of our Politically Incorrect episodes from the 90s that she would not lie, even in the case of hiding Anne Frank in her attic. Eddie Izzard confronted her and said, really, if Hitler was at the door and you had Anne Frank in the attic, you wouldn't lie? She said, no. God would find a way. So it's funny to me that she wouldn't lie in that instance, but she'd lie to get me ratings. That itself is a lie. So I guess she's a liar. But I like her. I don't think she's a meaningful liar. I like Christine a lot, and I hope she comes on our show. I will be kind to her, as I always was.
Why do you think she did bring up the whole fact of Satanism and having gone to some altar, of a satanic altar with a date one night? What other motive besides boosting your ratings could she have had? I'm trying to delve into her thinking here.
Well, I think she was always a very forthright person. There's one thing I will say about Christine is that she's very sincere. You know, there are some people who you feel like they're just saying it because that's what the people want to hear. Not Christine. I think she really believes everything she says. And I also think that devout people love the story of redemption. They love it when you're with the devil and then you throw him off for Jesus. Remember Bush? He was drunk until he was 40, and then he walked on the beach with Billy Graham or something, and he became, you know, a guy who went on to other things.
Why I like the redemption, too. Let's take a look at her in saying something she may have a problem defending. Here she is on Fox back in 2007. I think it was on Bill O'Reilly. Let's listen.
American scientific companies are crossbreeding humans and animals and coming up with mice with fully functioning human brains.
I don't know what to make of that. Are there mice? I know elephants are afraid of mice, but they must really be afraid of mice with people brains in them. What is she talking about? I've never heard of these mice with human brains in them. Yeah, it was a little unfortunate. I guess she read the article wrong. I don't know, but, you know, when I saw all this coverage of the witch stuff, I was laughing yesterday because that's not really important to the election. It's just a sideshow, as you would say. And it was funny. I don't think it should hurt her. It was something she was doing in high school. But when you think this about scientific issues that are facing this nation, I mean, people really could be helped by stem cell research. That's a real issue. You know, there are 37 Republican candidates for the Senate. Not one of them believes that global warming is real and man-made, except for one, Mike Castle, the guy she defeated in Delaware. Yeah, okay.
So
well, that is
to me
serious.
is a real issue.
Yeah, I look at them. They don't believe in evolution. They don't believe in science. They don't all the evidence of science they hold up as somehow elitist thinking. Right? Right. Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's lots of people who I like personally who I don't think should be in Congress. Unfortunately, many of them are already in Congress. But there's a difference between being a nice person and being fit for office.
Well, you have a problem endorsing some of these people, which I think is rational. Here's another bit of surprising rationality. I want you to respond to this. Here's Joe Miller when he was caught by Chris Wallace with a question which wasn't a curveball. It was a pretty fastball down the middle. Here he is asking a reasonable question of the newly nominated Senate candidate from Alaska on Fox Sunday morning. Here's the question. Let's listen.
Do you think that Sarah Palin is qualified to be president, and would you like to see her run?
You know, I'm running a U.S. Senate race right now in the state of Alaska. That's what I'm focused on. I've been asked about various candidates throughout the country during this race. That's not my role to comment on those candidacies.
This is like within 2 weeks of being endorsed out of nowhere and made the nominee of the party for the United States Senate. He won't give her an inch, this guy.
But I think, Chris, that this is actually very indicative because Sarah Palin just pulled, I think, 7% of the vote at the Values Summit.
Yeah.
Okay, if she can only get 7% of that crowd, maybe her popularity, her candidacy is all a myth. If she can't get people like Joe Miller, one of her wingnuts from Alaska, to endorse her, if she can't get more than 7% of the Values voters, you know, maybe her base isn't those people. Maybe it's the media, which has nothing better to cover, or actually does have stuff better to cover, but would rather go to Sarah Palin for news.
Well, that's maybe both true. How about this? That the latest poll of Republicans on approval has her the highest approval of any Republican figure. She's at 76%. Now, maybe the question is, what do they approve about her or for her? Or maybe it's job approval for someone without a job. I don't know, but she's at 76%, Bill.
Well, if that's among Republicans, as you say, you have to also consider that 52% of Republicans think the President of the United States is sympathetic to terrorists who want to impose Sharia law on this country. So just, you know, that's who you're dealing with. That's the group that's coming from.
What do you make of Newt Gingrich making that charge?
You know, I mean, I was never a big fan of Newt Gingrich when he was in office. I have no idea why the media is still knocking on his door now that he is not in office. I think he is perhaps the most used guest on the Sunday talk shows. And what's sad is that Newt used to be the thinker in that party. You know, he was like the Trotsky. He was like their theoretician. This is the thinker? This is the reader? Well, you know, in the land of midgets, pygmies cast tall shadows.
Well, you know, of course, he has the theory about the president thinking like a Kenyan. But here's a smarter guy. Here's Bill Clinton this morning on Good Morning America. I want your thoughts about Mr. Clinton and how he's been performing lately. Here he is, President Bill Clinton. Let's listen.
The American people can elect whomever they want, but she served, you know, not a full-time term as governor. And she went out and did this. We don't even know if she's going to run for president.
What's your gut on that?
But I think she's clearly a public figure who speaks well and persuasively to the people who listen to her, and she's somebody to be reckoned with.
Wow, there's the president, George Stephanopoulos, this morning. He's a good judge of horse flesh, as we say. He's not underestimating her, Bill.
Horse flesh. Let's not go back to that, Chris. And leave Monica Lewinsky out of this. Actually, he made a very good point. She was the governor of a state with no people for half a term. There has to be a little higher bar, I think, for running for office than just having a Facebook page. And by the way, speaking of that, you know, there are 4 states in this country. Delaware is another one of them. Alaska is one of them. I think Vermont, and maybe it's North Dakota. Forgive me if I get that wrong. That are so tiny that they have 2 senators and only 1 congressman. And yet they had 2 senators from Delaware and Alaska representing like a few 100,000 people. And 1 senator from my state of California represents 18 million. I know the teabaggers are on that issue. So sometimes even a broken clock is right.
Well, they don't like popular election of senators, but I think they still like the little states to get their 2 big senators. Let me ask you about Jimmy Carter.
Yes,
Jimmy Carter, right. I got to ask you about Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter, they don't like popular election of senators. You think they'd want power to the people. They don't want the people to pick their senators. They want the state legislatures to pick the senators,
right.
which is very strange for an anti-establishment political movement. Let me ask you about President Carter. You got all the time in the world. I worked for him once, as you know. He's an interesting guy. What do you make of his latest statements about being different than the other former presidents?
I love Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter is so honest and out there. You know, sometimes I hear people say, oh, Obama, his term could become like Jimmy Carter's. Yeah, I wish. You know, Jimmy Carter did some real bold things, like returning the Panama Canal. Can you see a president trying to do that today? Or getting on national television and telling the American people that they're lazy and they're using too much energy? Remember that speech? I like Jimmy Carter. I think this country needs a lot more of that sort of forthright honesty. Go, Jimmy. Keep talking. That's the great thing about being old. You don't give a rat's ass anymore.
You are so honest. Bill Maher, thank you for coming on this program. You're the best. Thank you. I love getting on your
Always
show
a
once in a
pleasure.
while. Real Time airs Friday nights at 10 o'clock on HBO. No commercials.